Hello, if we can get everyone to take their seats, we can get started. So my name is Regina Brooks, and I'm on the board of AWP, and I'm very happy to see everyone this morning. AWP thanks IngramSpark, an innovative self-publishing platform, for sponsoring this lecture event today. I would like to welcome Crystal Hardison, an IngramSpark representative, to the podium to tell you a bit more about their mission and sponsorship.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Crystal Hardison, and it is my honor to stand before you today to express how proud we are to support this year's AWP HBCU Fellowship Program lecture event. IngramSpark is known as an innovative print-on-demand platform designed to empower authors, publishers, and creators by providing an easy access to the tools they need to bring their stories to life. Whether you're an aspiring writer or an established author, we offer a seamless way to reach readers in every corner of the world. And beyond that, we are champions for diverse voices and stories that have been historically overlooked. For many writers, access to the traditional publishing world can feel limited. IngramSpark serves as a powerful equalizer, offering opportunities for writers and storytellers to take control of their creative endeavors. The ability to independently publish your work, whether it's poetry, fiction, or academic text, without offering any type of compromise or quality or accessibility, is the game changer that we want students, professors, and alumni to embrace and take full advantage of. At the heart of IngramSpark's mission is the belief that every story should be heard. We recognize that the literary landscape is enriched by a tapestry of experiences, backgrounds, and perspectives. IngramSpark is committed to ensuring that underrepresented voices are not just heard, but also elevated. Now, the reason I'm especially passionate about the AWP HBCU Fellowship Program is rooted in the idea of fostering community, a community of writers who uplift and inspire one another. This program provides invaluable opportunities for students and emerging writers of color to receive the mentorship and recognition they deserve. It is a bridge for writers to connect with their peers, professionals, and industry leaders who understand the nuances of their experiences. Through initiatives like the AWP HBCU Fellowship Program, writers can be mentored, develop their craft, and acquire the necessary skills to succeed in an often challenging literary world. As a proud alum of an HBCU, the Tennessee State University, I believe that investing in Black writers is an investment in cultural preservation and evolution. Historically, Black colleges and universities have always been incubators of brilliance, producing generations of groundbreaking scholars and creatives. The AWP HBCU Fellowship Program builds on that tradition by ensuring that these talented individuals have the platforms they need to succeed, while also recognizing the importance of their unique voices. So while we're here to celebrate the wealth of talent and the creativity in the HBCU community of today, it is also essential to acknowledge the writers of our past. As we look to the future of writing and publishing, it's vital that we nurture these emerging voices, and IngramSpark is proud to be a partner in that journey. We are committed to providing the resources and guidance to aid writers, especially those from HBCUs, to navigating their path to greatness. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to the continued collaboration and supporting these incredible fellows and their important contributions. Now, more from Regina Brooks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Crystal, and thank you again for your sponsorship. The lecture you are about to hear will be given by Tayari Jones, New York Times best-selling author of 4 novels, most recently, An American Marriage, which was awarded the Women's Prize for Fiction. Her third, Silver Sparrow, was added to the NEA Big Read Library of Classics in 2018. Jones is a graduate of Spelman College, University of Iowa, and Arizona State University. She is an Andrew D. White Professor at Large at Cornell University and the Charles Howard Candler Professor of Creative Writing at Emory University. HBCU have long been the incubator, as Crystal said, for African American literature and also robust debate. The gift of self-definition is the true endowment of these institutions. Black words are black wealth. A lecture by Tayari Jones, sponsored again by IngramSpark, discusses this long legacy and the route forward for Black writers who come of age at HBCUs. After the lecture, there will be time to answer a few questions from the audience. Our member services coordinator will collect your index cards towards the end. And without further ado, we have Tayari Jones.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience this morning. And thank you for still believing in writing and putting one word next to the other. As you know, we are in very perilous times right now. And sometimes it can be hard to keep our eyes on the hopeful horizon, because anyone who believes that our written words can change the world is fundamentally optimistic. It's about believing that you and your voice, your pen, your words have the ability to help steer this ship. And just being around you all during the course of this conference has been so inspiring to me, because I will tell you, like a lot of people, it has been a rough couple months. And I think we just all have to have a grace with one another. I was happy to participate in the AWP HBCU Fellowship Program because two things changed my life as a writer. One, having gone to Spelman College, where I met a writer, and she was my teacher. Her name was Pearl Clegg. And seeing a writer in real life changed things for me. And secondly, about 20 years ago, I went to an AWP conference in Portland. I had never been to AWP, didn't know anything about it. I was able to go because the person who had been chosen to go backed out at the last minute, and they kind of offered it to me. And my pride first was like, I don't take seconds. But I decided to go. And when I was there, I actually I'm tall. You all see how tall I am. All my life, I feared that it was just a matter of time before I ran into or ran over a petite person. I have feared this. I've been this tall since I was 12. I was taller than the teacher. So this was like a fear. And I was about 26 years old. I hadn't injured anyone yet. I went into an elevator in AWP, ran into a petite person. I apologized, and it turned out that she had read the one story that I had published in a small literary magazine, and she invited me to come and get my MFA. And so between HBCUs and AWP, that was a way that my path was charted. So I was delighted to give this talk and serve in this role with the fellowship program, because I think that the way forward is about making bridges and connections. But okay, on with the show. This lecture is called Black Words or Black Wealth. I submitted this title in late October last year. It wasn't even 6 months ago, but it was a different era in the history of this country. I chose the title Black Words or Black Wealth as a tribute to Nikki Giovanni, who was my friend, mentor, and occasional sparring partner. This title was a nod to her famous poem, Nikki Rosa, that ends with the always inspiring lines, "Black love is black wealth." With those lines, she stuck the landing in the way that all great poets do. But in her poem, When I Die, she distinctly forbade anyone to read Nikki Rosa at her funeral. But she wrote that in 1975 when no one believed that day would ever really come. I know I wasn't worried about that, not seriously at least, when I titled this talk in her honor. Sure, Nikki's cancer had returned, but she was on top of it. Her illness made me worry about her and resolved to give her more flowers, send more notes and poems to help her get better. We even had like a sister act situation scheduled for February, Black History Month. We were going to give a talk together in Texas. You know, for decades in Black History Month, Nikki always said, in February, you work 28 days straight. And I was tickled that she worked an event with me onto her schedule. But that was 6 months ago. It was a different era, like I said. So let's remember last October, Nikki was alive and filling up her calendar. Kamala Harris was racing through her 100-day campaign, speaking to crowds, numbering in the tens of thousands, telling us that it doesn't have to be this way. A hurricane rammed through the southern states. In Atlanta, we lost power for several days. My mother, who's 83 years old, wore a miner's lamp on her forehead and addressed postcards to get out the vote. Nikki had gone into the hospital, but they released her. She made plans to promote the documentary of her life called Going to Mars. And I joked with her in a note that when I was 8 years old, I had written a 6-page book of the same title, Going to Mars. She asked me if I had saved it for my archives. I told her that I didn't have it anymore. My mother wasn't the sentimental type. And she shrugged and reminded me to save everything. She also added that it wasn't anyone's, not my mother's, no one's responsibility to prove that I was here. That's a service we owe to ourselves, to leave our mark. She always gave such good advice. And 6 months ago, I did not know that her time on this earth was almost over. So when I planned this talk, I imagined that I would be adding my thoughts to a very different conversation than the one we're having now. In October, you could not have told me that we wouldn't have had our first HBCU graduate in the White House. Who could have convinced me that the very fabric of our government would be shredded even before the daffodils had a chance to bloom? And no one could have made me believe that Nikki Giovanni, the enfant terrible of the Black arts movement who grew to be the grande dame of Black poetry, would have been given a funeral fit for a statesman in her hometown of Cincinnati. But here we are. And so there I was, stuck with this title, Black Words or Black Wealth, in a world that I don't even really know anymore. I can't ask Nikki how to handle it, so I just have to remember the things she taught me. One of the many things Nikki always said was, whatever is true will always stay true. This is something she said once when I was preparing a talk, but I didn't know who would be in the room. I said, how can I talk if I don't know who I'm talking to? That's when she told me about the enduring nature of the truth. Just tell the people the truth. So what if a talk I planned 6 months ago wasn't still true in the same way? I mean, I would have told her, I don't know if it's still relevant. The world has changed so much. But if she were here, maybe I would tell her that maybe I'm the one that's changed, that I have been altered in the last 6 months. This new world order has me questioning everything. But I know what she would say. What does what you feel have to do with the truth? And she's right. Black stories are Black wealth. That's just facts. And although at this moment, there are no MFA programs, and I say at this moment, there are no MFA programs at HBCUs, our institutions have been birthing Black literary brilliance for centuries. When talking about HBCUs, before we go any further, it's important to think about the sheer diversity of the 108 institutions that huddle under this umbrella. The first, Cheyney University, was founded in 1837 by Quakers, followed by Lincoln University, established in 1854 by the formerly enslaved. The University of the Virgin Islands is the baby of our family, founded in 1962. Morris Brown College in Atlanta was the brainchild and brain trust of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. My granddaddy was an AME pastor. And my own alma mater, Spelman College, was started by a pair of white women missionaries from New England. Some of our schools are public institutions funded by state legislators. Others are private. Still others occupy kind of hybrid status. The largest is North Carolina A&T with 14,000 enrolled, while others soldier on with an enrollment of just 182. That gets me, that number, 182. Tuition and fees can be as high as $2,300 a year, ranging to $45,000. We are co-ed, we are single sex. There are HBCUs that proudly honor a tradition of open admissions, educating everyone who seeks to learn, while others refuse far more than they accept. Howard University has recently been declared a Research 1. Meharry Medical School has produced more Black physicians than all other institutions combined. We award BAs, BSs, MAs, MSs, PhDs, MDs. Y'all know we do those EDDs, JDs, everything. So in May, when graduates turn their tassels at these institutions, we have to remember the words of novelist Dr. Daniel Black in his viral speech last summer that said, "Here they come, y'all, here they come." We are many, we are various, and we are connected. We are different yet the same in the way that members of a family are different yet the same. The HBCUs have produced more great writers than I can list here. Writing has always been a key pillar in our freedom platform. Books, paper, pen, and inks were contraband for a reason. When Frederick Douglass famously said, "Once you learn to read, you will be forever free," it logically follows that once you learn to write, you will be forever freeing others. So, if you will indulge me, I just want to list a handful of the writers in the HBCUs that shaped them. Some of the names will be familiar to you, others will not, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that they lived on this earth, studied on our campuses, and ordered their thoughts on the page. That's what Nikki was saying, that it's our own responsibility to prove that we are here. This list is so short, I was actually considering not even writing it because of all the ones I would necessarily leave out. But then I thought, I will acknowledge just these few, and at the end, if you know more, I ask you, I beg you to speak their names. Of course, we have to start off with our queen, Toni Morrison, from Howard University. Alice Walker from Spelman College, Ralph Ellison, Tuskegee Institute, Nikki Giovanni, Fisk University, Nick Stone, Spelman College, Honoré Fanon Jeffers, Talladega College, Jericho Brown, my friend, colleague, Dillard University, Donnie Walton, Florida A&M University, Eddie Glaude, Morehouse College, Ta-Nehisi Coates, Howard University, Victoria Christopher Murray, Hampton University, Charles Blow, Grambling State University. There's so many more throughout history. I could be here, I could spend the whole time listing our writers. And one of the things about our writers is that, particularly early in our literary tradition, a writer was not considered to only write. Like, I could put W.E.B. Du Bois on this list, but he's not mostly known as a writer. But he wrote, like, writing was considered one of the ways that we proved our freedom. And I won't say everybody did it, but I'm gonna say everybody did it. So when I was invited again to take this post, I was told again, you know, there's no MFA program at a HBCU. And this is true, but you can't say we haven't produced truth tellers. These names and others are the receipts of what we have done. And you may say, how did we do it? But again, I'm reminded of Nikki, because one of the things she would say in so many contexts is, think about Margaret Walker. And I know she would tell me this in preparing this talk, because she would talk about Margaret Walker in all kinds of contexts, because Margaret Walker was a true friend of the Black world of letters. And she did not make a distinction between the world of Black literature and just the world of Black folks. Because again, writing has always been part of our freedom practice. Now, a lot of people don't know much about Margaret Walker Alexander, but her footprint, her impact is everywhere. She was born in 1915. She studied at Dillard University, but she received her degree from Northwestern University in 1935. She received a master's in creative writing from the University of Iowa in 1942. And this was the same year she won the Yale Younger Prize for poetry for her collection For My People. Margaret Walker knew from a very young age that not only did she know that she wanted to be a writer, but she knew that she wanted to make it her life's work to nurture and expand the African American literary tradition. And she did it in Jackson, Mississippi. Her catchphrase, the thing that people most often quote her saying is, "Come to Mississippi." She invited everyone, come to Mississippi. She invited poets, writers, playwrights, scholars, everyone to come to Mississippi, to Jackson State University. She put them up in her own home, served them from her own plates. She insisted that the students at Jackson State be exposed to great literature and the great minds that produced it. And this exposure was a two-way street because the great minds of the day were also exposed to the young people that would be our future. That's how it works. Because of the many responsibilities of faculty members at any institution is that we establish the standards. In telling our students who and what is important, we influence their ambition. With these invitations, Margaret Walker Alexander told these young writers, these young people, that these words on these pages, this is your inheritance. When I went to Breadloaf for the first time, I was hanging out with all my new friends in one of those yellow houses. I don't know if y'all have been there, but they're these kind of cute, everything there is very cute, yellow houses. And I was we were all debut writers, excited to have our first books. And the conversation somehow turned to what everyone had worn to their luncheon to meet the media. I was like, wait a minute, people having luncheons to meet the media? Like here I was with my first book handing out bookmarks, postcards, about my book, trying to inform people that I was here on the planet in some way. And other people had luncheons to meet the media, and they had strategies about what one should wear when one was having a luncheon to meet the media. I was so upset, I went back to my dorm room, and this is back in the days of payphones. I feel like I'm dating myself, but I had to gather up all these quarters, put them in the payphone, and I called my mentor, Pearl Clegg, and I said, "Pearl, how will I ever catch up?" She said, "Who are you racing and where are you trying to go?" And I was still sniffling, explaining that the others had been on NPR. Like one of the people had said that they were on NPR and they were sharing like Gertrude Stein's recipe for hash brownies, which had something to do with their book. And Pearl cut me off and said, "Was Tony K. Bombara ever on NPR? You don't know, do you? Because it doesn't matter." I heard her, but still, I called Nikki, more quarters. And these days, you used to have to carry like a roll of quarters with you anywhere so that you could make a call and you could talk. For the young people in the house, I'll tell you, you could only talk a certain amount of time on your quarters and you get cut off. So then you start trying to talk fast. But Nikki called the name of the other Tony. She said she didn't write The Blue as I to get her picture in the paper. She wrote it to tell the truth. She said, "Don't let these white people make you forget why you've been called to do what you're supposed to do." I could go on and on about the ways that my HBCU experience nurtured me as a writer and as a person. I finished Spelman College 30 years ago, and I'm vulnerable to nostalgia. I can't lie. Besides, in the years since I went out into the world, I too often found myself in the company of people who don't even know that HBCUs exist, or if they do, they see our institutions as tragic remnants of the past. And I will admit that I can be a little overprotective, perhaps a little bit defensive. Maybe I'm too committed to avoiding nuance in order to put the best foot forward. But that said, I can hear Nikki just over my shoulder urging me to tell the whole truth, to tell the rest of the story. I think we all know that the students from HBCUs were instrumental in the civil rights movements. They sat in, chained themselves to fences, faced down the dogs and the hoses. But did you know many of them were expelled for their activism? Nikki was one of the students expelled from Fisk, historically black Fisk, for protesting segregation. My own father was expelled from Southern University for sitting in at a department store lunch counter. My daddy was one of 10 kids raised in 3 rooms. He went to the service, all of this, made his way to college, stood up for what was right, and was not only expelled from Southern University, he was forbidden to attend any state university in the whole state of Louisiana. That's how hard they came down on the young people who protested segregation. And we were expelled from our own institutions. I can't tell you that sense of betrayal that the young people felt. And you may wonder why colleges and universities that were founded for the betterment of Black communities would bring the hammer down on its students for resisting segregation. It's because the presidents were beholden to the donors who provided the money to keep the doors open for anyone to go to school at all. But you can imagine again how the students felt being cast away from the campuses that had become their homes. They had been inspired to say enough in meetings held on the campus, on those very campuses, and then to be cast aside. My daddy was over 50 years finished Southern when they had a ceremony to honor the students who had been expelled and to give them their degrees. And he was busy. He couldn't make it. Like, that's how mad he was. He didn't even go. And this, too, is our history. But there is a little coda to this. My father was over 70 years old when he found out that these university presidents talked to one another. Of course, in public, they had to say, there's no place for these people on our campus. You know, they must be sent away. But they arranged that they would take one another's students in other states to make sure that everyone got a chance to finish their degree. But they couldn't say anything. Just imagine, think of your own, if you're professors, think of your own undergraduates. You couldn't secretly give them a heads up. There was too much at stake if it was known that they were defying these orders. But they took care of those kids. And on his retirement a few years ago, my father gave a speech about that and said that we have to have faith in the people who have led us this far. That looking back on it, he now knows, of course, that's how he ended up in school, of course. But he was led to believe that he had done it on his own or something, but of course that's what happened. So we just have to have faith and give each other some grace. But there's more, because we have had missteps in the past. Many people know that Alice Walker attended Spelman College. She is one of our most celebrated graduates. We talk about her all the time. But did you know that she didn't graduate from Spelman? She left Spelman and went to Sarah Lawrence College because she was not comfortable with all the respectability politics at Spelman at that time. She did not want to wear pantyhose. She did not want to be somewhere where there was a 6 p.m. curfew so that everyone could know that young ladies are young ladies. She was not interested in being a young lady. And so she left Spelman College. I will give a little coda in that. I was talking to one of my Spelman sisters, Bettina Judd, who's a poet, and she told me that she had not started at Spelman, that she came to Spelman in her sophomore year. And I said, oh my God, you're a naturalized Spelman? I did not know. And she said she had transferred from Sarah Lawrence. She said, I was closing the Alice Walker loop. But even I have a story that I think is important when we consider our HBCU experience. Everyone who knows me even a little bit knows that I love Spelman College. I bought this blue and white dress because I was receiving an award from Spelman and I wanted to represent, chromatically. But I will tell you that my journey to be a writer there did have some struggles, and it involves Alice Walker. When I was a sophomore, I saw on a bulletin, this one used to have bulletin boards, this is before computers. There was a color flyer on the bulletin board with a picture of Alice Walker. Back then, if you saw something in color, you took note because it cost some money to print it. And it said that Alice Walker had endowed an award that would give $10,000 to the young woman who was more or less going to be a writer so that she may look around calmly and find her way. I memorized the copy. $10,000 that you could just take time off and try to write. and it was for the person who was more or less going to be a writer. And I thought, that is me. I am more or less going to be a writer. And I prepared my portfolio. I even went to Kinko's and had some of it printed on cardstock. It was like 10 cents a page. That was a lot. And I even paid for the little curly binding. Like, I wanted to present a professional portfolio. I wrote a play. I mean, I did everything to show that I was the one that was more or less going to be a writer. And when time came for the award to be given, I did not receive it. I did not receive the award. In the time between when I applied and learned I did not get it, I was encouraged to apply to a PhD program. And I said, well, I'm applying for that Alice Walker Prize. They're like, no, you should really apply to get a PhD. I know you want to write. You can write on the weekends. And so I, always being a nice girl, I'm Southern, the nice girl thing, I applied to the PhD program. I was accepted. And then I did not receive the Alice Walker Prize. And it was like, see, aren't you glad you applied to the PhD program? And I was, but I was so disappointed. But the thing is, no one was given the prize that year. They decided they would I was told by the department chair that they would just hold it back and endow it to make sure that the money was there. And it was strange, and I remember feeling away, I guess I'll say. I know I'm supposed to be this articulate writer, but all I can say is I felt away about it. And I went to Iowa. That's another story. I went from Atlanta to Iowa. That was cruel and unusual, but that's beside the point. But I found out later that the award had been withheld because the fear was that I would take that $10,000, go to New York and try to be a writer or something, end up being impoverished, and squander my education by trying to chase this dream, that the money would do more harm than good. And so it was held back. Although I must say that the department chair, she's 96 now, she told me, she said she didn't give it to anyone because she knew if she gave it to someone else, I would stroke out. She was correct. But the thing is, once I found that out, I was really wounded because I felt that they were saying they didn't believe in me. They didn't believe that I could be a writer. You see, at black colleges, they do that in loco parenthesis, standing in for your parents thing, really hard, which is in one point is a kind of blessing, but on the other point, nobody's parents encourage their children to be artists. Part of the way they love you is to encourage you to get a job. They encourage you, they know that you want to eat daily, several times a day. And so therefore, this was held back, and it felt like a clipping of my wings. And so there I was trying to get a PhD. I felt like I was a bird being trained to be an ornithologist. I was so unhappy. But again, even though a decision made by a professor at HBCU, and my parents, by the way, who are professors at HBCUs, had me up there in Iowa suffering. It was cold. They act like they had never seen a black person before since Margaret Walker in 1942. But I wrote to Pearl, and she said to me, remember, your life is just that, yours. You can quit if you want to. And that is when I walked away from the PhD program, and I bought something that was very expensive and exotic. It was called a laptop computer. They called it that because you could put it on your lap. It's very exciting. It weighed 11 pounds. Everyone was like, that's the whole computer. I was like, yep. They were like, it's so light. But that is when I started to become a writer. So I just feel like it was a nuanced, experience, is what I'm saying. That steps were made to actively discourage me from writing, but then a step was made to encourage me. And I also believe this. I know we want to create programs where we nurture our students and everything, but also I think if you are going to be a writer, you do have to be strong enough to peck your way out of your own eggshell. Like, it's not a soft experience to become a writer. But enough of all that history, and it is kind of unsettling to me to realize that my own experience now qualifies as history. And I think that sometimes we may lean too much on the H in HBCU, historically, black colleges and universities. What about the now? What about the way forward? Howard University and Jackson State University are racing to be the first to begin MFA programs at HBCUs. This will be a game changer for black writing, both here in the U.S. and in the diaspora. This will be a new day begun. And one of the questions I think we're going to have to ask ourselves is, in what way will we be different? We will start our MFA programs, but what are we going to do that's different than the ways that others have done the MFA? The goal is not just to do it on our campuses. What will be different? And I've been thinking a lot about the ways that the world of literature has changed. A lot has changed even here at this conference. When I attended my first AWP 20-something years ago in Portland, people used to joke that AWP stood for all white poets. That's just how it was. That was 96. That was the year that Cornelius Eady and Toy Darracott founded Cave Canem. And think about it, Cave Canem is a historically Black institution. And I think a lot of people have a hard time remembering what poetry was like before Cave Canem. But Cornelius and Toy did it because of the absence of Black poets in the room being celebrated. Not just being celebrated, because it wasn't about celebrating, it was about getting their words out there, distributed in the hands of people. And so they have reloaded the canon. And now we know, though, there's still so much work to be done. And how are we going to go about it? I've been thinking a lot about DEI. You know, that's the word we hear all the time, and it has become a slur. And DEI is not a term that you really think about when thinking about Black institutions: diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because people don't think of an all-Black room as a diverse room. But we are a diverse population. And one of the things I think that's going to be very important as we nurture institutionalizing our writing instruction is that we nurture Black diversity. We have to include all the Black voices. We have to undermine these hierarchies. And yes, I know that's difficult to say. A master's degree is almost fundamentally a hierarchical space. But we know that the route to mainstream publishing, et cetera, is in this country right now is through the MFA. We can't change that, but we can change who gets the MFA. And that's one of the things we have to do. And we need to think about inclusion. And by inclusion, I don't only mean people who attend our colleges, the people who are on the faculty of Black colleges. I think we need to be broader in who we think of. We have to think of a HBCU diaspora. If you think of all the writers, all the scholars who've been trained at HBCUs, many of us, myself included, I teach at Emory University, then my students are experiencing part of the Black college diaspora. I had a student that I had to kind of catch up the other day because she was not getting her work. I was not pleased with her performance. And so I called her to my office and I talked to her the way that I had been talked to as a student. And she was kind of like, and she said, "I feel like I'm at an HBCU." I said, yeah, because this is a historically Black office. And I think that is important. I think we got to break down this barrier we have between, the people who went to the HBCUs and those who didn't. Think about your professors at your HBCUs. Some of our best professors didn't go to HBCUs, but they were committed to our students. And we have to be committed to our students wherever we find it. We have to take the things that we learn at our home institutions and spread that around, because our Black literature has to mirror our Black lives and all of its complexity, all of its nuance. And we have to challenge ourselves to confront our own prejudices. We have to challenge ourselves to grow. We have to challenge ourselves to think outside the borders, not just of where you went to school. We got to challenge ourselves to challenge the borders of this nation. We are a mighty people all over the world with mighty stories to tell, and we need to tell them to each other so that we can grow, so we can change, and so that we can continue our freedom practice. My final thought is this. HBCUs have long dwelled at the intersection of sheer talent, hard work, lay socialism, I will call it, and good luck. Who among us doesn't know the story of a poor son or daughter of a Southern family who attended an HBCU due to the dogged support of a grade school teacher, coupled with an accumulation of coins from the church collection plate, and just a certain amount of right place at the right time. We have to continue this tradition. Gwendolyn Brooks famously said, "There's no such thing as other people's children." This is something that we have to continue. We're in trouble right now. And we have to believe, if we believe that our stories are important, if we really believe that, we have to ask ourselves, what have each of us done today to help a Black story make its way into the world? This is not about our own careers. It's not about winning prizes. It's about telling the truth. And Black stories are Black wealth because, as Nikki said, Black love is Black wealth. And our stories are our love on the page. Thank you. I would like, and now I want to take your questions. I want to talk to you. I want to know what you're thinking about. When was the last time we were all in a room like this? I want us to have a conversation. I was told that we have some AV issues, but you can write your questions on an index card. And can they not just ask me the questions? Can we just do that? Okay, anybody got a question? Raise your hand, let's go. Is that Kim? Hey girl, I haven't seen you in forever. How are you? Congratulations on everything.
It's not a question, I'm sorry for that, but I just want to acknowledge Chicago State University, which is not a historically Black college, but it is because of its location in the south side of Chicago, its relocation, it's become Black. And they have an MFA program which has existed now for like over 15 years. It was not a perfect program by any means, but if the HBCUs want a model, look at that program which was founded by Hakeem Adabuti. Our canon was Black American writing. We did not read Hemingway. We did not read, any of these. We read Baldwin. We read Jordan Hurston. We read Morrison. We read John Oliver Killens, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So look at that as a model.
It's funny, Kim was saying Chicago State University, I'll speak it over here. I'll summarize, but not as eloquently what you said. It's funny, she talked about Chicago State University that has had an MFA program for over 15 years where they use Black American literature as the canon. It's funny, when I was writing this about the diversity of HBCUs, I almost mentioned Chicago State. I wanted to call it a RCBU, a recently Black college, founded by Hakeem Adabuti, and that, and of course, and including Margaret Walker Alexander. I know. See, here's the thing. Let me tell y'all what's going on with this AV thing. People on the live stream can only hear what I'm saying in the microphone. And so they want me to share that. And then so I'm struggling too, because the energy of your own voices, like hearing Kim in her own voice meant a lot to me. So we're going to work this out. Because, if we did go to HBCUs, we know sometimes we got to get flexible and creative.
They actually go. So when you call somebody, I don't know, I'm also self-published through IngramSpark, so thank you. And so I sent this in the Black binders. Everybody said had
I remember this.
suggestions, and you were like, "Well, can I call you?" And I was like, "Absolutely." Like, so y'all were just gonna call me, and you did, and you gave me 5 pointers about how to decide what events to do, how much should I charge, when should I maybe charge less because it's a good community organization. And then we got off the phone, and that was that. I charged $5,000. They gave it to me. $3,500 for the speaking engagement plus travel and hotel. So thank you. I appreciate you. And so I just want to say that to you. So you didn't know me, Adam, and so here's that.
Well, I got to tell you and if you recall, I told you, I'm telling you what Nikki told me about people say, how much should you charge? Nikki said the first question you ever want to ask is, do you want to go? That's the first question. Do you want to go? If you don't want to go, don't go. If you do want to go, you probably will go. And you have to understand, too, that people organizations generally offer you what they have. It's nobody sitting on no big pile of money and just going to give you a little bit. They have a budget and they ask themselves, who would I like to see here? And they extend the offer to you. It may not be enough for you, you may not want to go, and you just politely tell them you don't want to, but it's never an insult to be invited anywhere. And you have to remember that about the people who are asking you. They're offering you what they have. And that is also how you build community. I could tell y'all forever things Nikki said to me, but Nikki said this to me too about giving a talk. She said, look out in the room. She said, those black people in the audience, she says, they will take care of you as a writer for the rest of your life. She said, these other people come and go with trends. She said, black readers are forever. And it touches me now to say this because she said, those people in that room, they will come to your funeral. Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Dr. Erica Miller Tate. I am a proud Howard University graduate. So to see you this morning, my sister, is a true blessing. As we close out Women's History Month, to watch you eloquently educate all of us, whether you went to a PWR and HBCU, is remarkable. So I thank you. I met you years ago at the LA Times Festival of Love. And I was dealing with some work nonsense. And one of the things that you said to me that always stuck with me is tell your story. And you wrote that in my book that you autographed. As a psychology professor, and as you guys are developing the MFA program, may I provide a suggestion to that action curriculum? Could we possibly consider having a psychology experience of writing as a potential course in the MFA program? Because as we as writers, we go through pendulums, and we're often by ourselves. And looking deeper into ourselves might just help us to literally become.
That is a wonderful suggestion. She was talking about including a psychology of writing into an MFA curriculum. Like how do our minds work, right? Like what is the epistemology of it? And I think it's so important that is one thing I think that we have learned at the HBCUs, that you create writers in many ways. We don't have to put them just on a writer track. That in developing the whole person, you develop the writer. Yes, sir. Hi.
Thank you. That was wonderful and inspiring. Dr.
Erica Miller Tate.
Dr. Miller Tate was pointing to something that really, really struck me, and I wanted to run by you so I've been processing it as you've been talking. I teach at a community college in Massachusetts, and what we've seen through our teaching and through institutions is just how embedded racism is in the work that we do, not only in how people develop curriculum, but in how people develop policy. How you actually structure the space that people come in to study. So there's a golden opportunity if you're starting an MFA program at an HBCU to rethink MFA structurally so that they are culturally sustaining to black people. And that means overhauling the whole system and creating something that we haven't even thought of yet. So I'm wondering, through your experience, maybe even as an MFA graduate, how can these MFA programs at HBCUs kind of revolutionize it for a new black writing curriculum?
Okay, I'm going to repeat it into the microphone, which is the question he asked is about how that racism is more than just curriculum. It's more than just what's on your reading list. It's kind of like the way that you think about, it has changed the way we think about the world, we think about writing, we think about making community, and what can we do as an MFA, as creating this new, what is a revolutionary MFA program? What does it look like? I almost want Kim Foote to come up here and tell y'all about that because they've actually done it at Chicago State, or have Ebony Lumumba come up here and talk about what they're doing at Jackson State. I mean, I know my own experience. I had a kind of, like how many people had a kind of what you feel was like a kind of a crazy MFA experience? Everybody, black people, white people, everybody. I think we all agree the MFA program is kind of, did you feel like you were getting hazed a little bit? Because I mean, even my white friends feel like they were getting hazed in their MFA program. I felt like I was getting racially hazed. But yeah, we all, this idea that you're gonna haze people into art, I think that would be the main thing I think that we would seek to undermine, I think. Yes, sir. Hey, how you doing?
Good morning. I'm John Poyter, WP Fellow. Thank you so much for this wonderful said that as authors we have to tell the truth and writing is freedom. So I want to ask, with the truth, shall our intention be to express or to transform? And you also said that we write, of course, to give freedom. So will there ever be a point in time where Black authors will not have to write with the intention of giving freedom?
That's okay. Two questions. One, he says, do we write to express? He's one of our fellows, y'all. We're so proud of him. Do we choose to express or transform? I think you can do both. I don't think there's an either or. But that was interesting, this idea that Black writing is part of our freedom practice. And will there ever be a time when Black writers are not writing with the goal of freedom? It's almost like, you know how I read somewhere that the goal of dentistry is to put dentistry out of business. Like the goal of dentistry is to make it where people will not need dentistry anymore. I don't think that dentistry or freedom works that way. I think that freedom has to be maintained. So I don't think we'll ever get free and just, it can take care of itself. I do think that perhaps, God willing, there'll be a time when I pray that one day we will write to maintain freedom instead of fight for freedom. Okay, so look, she handed me an index card. She's trying to show me how it's done. She's like, this is what we said we was going to do. When you speak of the Black diaspora, would that include writers from the Caribbean? Yeah. Yeah, that's what diaspora is, right? And it's writers on the continent, and it's wherever we are. It says it seems to be outside. Now all right, handwriting. Okay, that seems to be outside Black, confusing word in common. I think that literature, say Black literature, who wrote this? It says it seems to be outside Black literature in the common parlance. I do think that it's very important ultimately that we start thinking diasporically, think Pan-Africanistically. I think it's very important. And I do think that marketing concerns have separated members of the diaspora. But on the one hand, it is important that our differences be acknowledged. But on the other, I think the real challenge is that our differences throughout the diaspora are making it where writers who write from abroad are considered more cosmopolitan than, those of us who write from here. It's the hierarchy, I think, that is, for me, more troubling than the distinction. I know, right? Oh, yes, right? Okay, you want me to read it out loud now? Okay, now look, Autumn down there, you gotta wrap this up. Okay. I feel like I have been such a difficult person with this project. Please forgive me, y'all. Okay. Sometimes as a fiction writer, I struggle between centering my Black character in his positivity and strength, that's the goal, but then I want to be authentic with his struggles with racism and exclusion. I want to write a story that centers us without being so triggering. Do you think this type of novel can work as truth-telling and be comforting and entertaining? I'm going to say this, since I think this is the last question I can take, is this. The character's experiences should be as diverse as a character's experiences in real life. That there will be challenges. You don't have to, one thing I always say, I want my characters to feel like they live in the world, not like they live in the book. And if their experiences tend to seem to lean one way, like if their experience is all trauma, that feels like a person who lives in a book. Because a person who lives in real life has a variety of experiences. Just like when the people are too strong, when they're too strong and too noble, they feel like they live in a book. So I do think that if you have your characters and you center kind of a nuanced truth, it will shed light on the issues upon which you want to shed light, but will also be entertaining and comforting. Like my first novel is called Leaving Atlanta. It's about growing up in Atlanta during the Atlanta child murders. When I was a child, 28 Black children were murdered in my hometown. 2 were students at my elementary school. And someone said to me once, when I was in graduate school, getting racially hazed, somebody said to me, oh my God, that's so terrible. Did you even have a childhood? And I remember it because to tell me I didn't have a childhood is to tell me that I did not have a human experience. Everyone has a childhood. And so when I set out to write that novel about growing up during the child murders, that's exactly what it's about, growing up during the child murders. The Atlanta child murders, for me, I think of it, I was 11 years old, and I think about it as what it was to think about, this horrible serial killing, this war on black children, but you also had to think about, like, your training bra, right? Childhood is an amusing predicament. And so I did not want to lose the amusing predicament of childhood. Like, I still, even though the child murders were going on, I still remember my mother took me to Sears and Roebuck to get measured for this training bra, and they measured me, I was 28 inches. And the lady and my mother were like rolling their eyes at me, and I felt oppressed. And that was the thing that was on my mind. And I didn't want to lose that. I did not want the reality of the racism in the culture to help me lose that kind of universal childhood coming of age experience. So you can do it both. Now, the last thing I'm gonna say, because you can't see their faces, I can see their faces. But this is the one thing I want to say. I want to just give a word of advice to everybody. And that is this. I want everybody here to write something today. Put a word down today. I know we're all very busy people. I know we're very stressed people right now, both personally and kind of nationally. But we are going to have to make a record of what we are going through right now. I want you to be more mindful even in your journaling, because we have to make the people in 100 years are gonna wanna know what the hell happened here. And we are going to have to put our own voices. I don't want our great-grandchildren to be like, I'm gonna fill in the lost story of what happened. We gotta tell it forward. Only we can bear witness to this moment. And I don't want you to think about publication. I don't want you to think about any consequences. I want everybody to write down what happened to us today. And I know you're busy, but here's the thing. The things that make you busy, the things that make it where you don't have time to write, these are the things that make your writing important. We talk a lot about nurturing writers, and I want to nurture our writing, but also my goal is not a world where we as writers don't have anything to do but write. I don't want a world where we say, well, rich people somewhere, they can stay at home all day in their silk pajamas writing. I don't want to read a silk pajama book. I don't want to read a silk pajama book by nobody. So I want us to put on our shoes, lace them up, be out here in this world, witness this world, change this world, and write this world. Thank you very much.
Can we give Tayari another round of applause? Thank you so much. I just want to say that this event is a part of the AWP Fellowship Program, and if we could just take one quick second to have our fellows stand so they can also be acknowledged. Thank you. This program is thank you so much. This program is funded in part by a generous grant from the National Endowment for the Arts, and I just want to thank them as well. I want to take a moment to invite everyone in the room to the HBCU Fellowship Program reception. And that's going to take place this evening at 6 o'clock in the Olympic Room 3. Write that one down. Olympic Room 3. It's on the 3rd floor of the Marriott, the JW Marriott. So come and support this year's faculty and the student fellows that just stood. And if you're unable to attend the reception, you can also show your support for the program through a donation by visiting the HBCU Fellowship Program page on AWP's website. You can also purchase a t-shirt that also, the t-shirts are also, there's donations that are going towards the HBCU Fellowship Program. Such support with help from AWP to continue this grant and fellowship and provide this unique opportunity in the future of creative writing programs and the fellows at HBCUs. And lastly, a book signing by Tayari Jones will be taking place immediately after this, right now. If you can give her 10 minutes to get to the West Lobby, so don't approach her until she kind of gets to her location, that would be very helpful, and the books will be available for purchase. And thank you so much again, Tayari. That was really a wonderful talk. Okay.